There's a war happening right now. Not between you and the world. Not between you and other people. But between who you are and who you're supposed to become. The strongest battles aren't fought in public. They're fought in silence. In your mind. In your habits. In your decisions. Every time you hit snooze instead of starting your day, you lose a round. Every time you lie to yourself, delay your progress, or protect your comfort, you strengthen your weaker self. The greatest war you'll ever fight is you versus you. The enemy is your excuses, your emotions, your comfort zone. The part of you that craves safety more than success, validation more than victory. But there's another side, the version of you that's disciplined, patient, powerful. The one that doesn't seek applause, doesn't need motivation, and doesn't break when life hits back. That version is waiting, but it doesn't appear by chance. You have to fight for it. You have to train for it. You have to earn it. Because the truth is, real growth is not about conquering others. It's about conquering yourself. This audiobook is your manual for that war. It's not about speed. It's about endurance. It's not about comparison. It's about confrontation. And by the end, you'll learn what every mentally strong person already knows. You are your greatest opponent and your greatest weapon. Chapter 1. The War Within. Every person walks through life imagining their biggest enemies are outside of them. The critics, the doubters, the failures, the bad luck, the unfair situations. But the truth is, the greatest war you'll ever fight isn't out there. It's in here, inside your own mind. The real enemy is the version of you that refuses to evolve. The one that makes excuses. The one that clings to comfort. The one that tells you, tomorrow. Growth begins when you stop blaming the world and start confronting that voice within. You see, the battlefield isn't the workplace or your relationships or society. It's internal. Every day you wake up to two versions of yourself. One that wants progress and one that wants peace through avoidance. The first voice whispers, get up, let's go. You said you wanted more. The second voice says, 5 more minutes. It's not that serious. One voice is your future. The other is your past trying to survive. And every single day one of them wins. The war within isn't fought with weapons. It's fought with awareness. Because awareness is the first step toward victory. You can't defeat what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't change what you pretend doesn't exist. Most people lose the internal war because they keep fighting shadows, external problems, fake enemies, and temporary discomfort, while the real enemy hides behind their habits. That habit of procrastination. That habit of comparison. That habit of quitting the moment things get uncomfortable. Growth begins the moment you stop fighting symptoms and start addressing the source. You've got to face the uncomfortable truth. You are both the problem and the solution. Every limitation you feel right now, fear, doubt, insecurity, is a reflection of your own resistance. It's not that the world is holding you back. It's that you're still negotiating with your potential. You keep saying you want success, but you also want to stay comfortable. You want growth, but you also want ease. You want transformation, but you don't want the discomfort that comes with shedding who you used to be. And that's the paradox of growth. You cannot evolve and stay the same person. The war within is about choices. Micro decisions that seem small in the moment but shape the entire direction of your life. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you win a battle. Every time you choose self-awareness over denial, you gain territory. Every time you choose purpose over pleasure, you move closer to victory. Because this war isn't about conquering others, it's about mastering yourself. But mastery doesn't happen overnight. It happens in moments, quiet, unseen, uncomfortable moments where you face your own resistance. It's waking up when you said you would, even though no one would know if you didn't. It's choosing to keep going when your emotions tell you to stop. It's holding yourself accountable when it's easier to shift the blame. This is where growth happens. Not in motivation, not in hype, but in the consistency of self-discipline when no one's watching. You versus. You is the war between your higher self and your weaker self. Your higher self pushes you toward purpose. Your weaker self wants immediate comfort. Your higher self seeks truth. Your weaker self hides behind excuses. Your higher self says, let's fix this. Your weaker self says, this is just who I am. You have to decide which one deserves your loyalty. And make no mistake, the war within is brutal. Because it's not just about doing more, it's about becoming more. It's not about fake positivity or pretending everything's okay. It's about brutally honest self-reflection. Asking yourself questions that hurt to answer. Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? What am I avoiding by staying busy? Who am I blaming for problems I created? You can't heal what you refuse to face. And you can't grow while you're still lying to yourself. The first sign of growth is discomfort. The second is clarity. When you start to face your inner weaknesses, the laziness, the ego, the fear of failure, it feels painful at first. You'll resist it. You'll justify it. But the pain of self-awareness is necessary. Because that pain means you've finally stopped running. You've stopped hiding behind, "I'll change later." You've stopped negotiating with mediocrity. That's when transformation begins, when you look at yourself and admit, "I'm the reason I'm not where I want to be." It's a hard truth, but it's also the key to your freedom. Most people never reach their potential because they're fighting the wrong battles. They're trying to control outcomes instead of controlling their mindset. They're chasing shortcuts instead of building systems. They're obsessed with looking successful instead of becoming disciplined. Real growth starts when you realize success isn't about control. It's about surrendering to responsibility. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can always control your reaction. You can always control your preparation, your effort, your habits, your mindset. That's where power lives, in responsibility, not blame. To win the war within, you must first understand your enemy. Study your own patterns like a soldier studies terrain. When do you quit? When do you lose focus? When do your emotions dictate your choices? Every time you catch yourself slipping, you're gaining awareness. And awareness is armor. Because once you see your patterns clearly, they can't control you anymore. But awareness without action is useless. Knowing your flaws doesn't change them, execution does. The point of self-awareness isn't to label yourself. It's to upgrade yourself. Growth is about constant correction, noticing where you fall short, adjusting, and moving forward without self-pity. You don't lose when you fall. You lose when you stop fighting. You don't fail when you make mistakes. You fail when you stop learning. The war within is lifelong. You won't win it once and be done. You'll fight it daily, in habits, in emotions, in decisions. But with every battle you win, the weaker version of you fades a little more. And one day you'll wake up stronger, not because life got easier, but because you stopped sabotaging yourself. So ask yourself, who am I fighting today, my excuses or my evolution? Am I building discipline or feeding distraction? Am I living by purpose or reacting to impulse? Every choice answers that question. The war within never ends, but the more you face it, the more you grow. And the more you grow, the more peace you'll find, not because life stops challenging you, but because you finally stopped being your own worst enemy. This is the foundation of you versus you. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness. Chapter 2. Your biggest obstacle isn't failure. It's comfort. Comfort disguised as peace. The most dangerous enemy of growth isn't chaos, pain, or rejection. It's the quiet, subtle satisfaction of good enough. That invisible lullaby that whispers, "You're fine. Don't push too hard. Don't risk it." Comfort is seductive. It looks like peace, but it's really paralysis. It makes you feel safe while it silently kills your potential. And until you name it, until you define the enemies within you, you'll keep fighting blind. You can't defeat what you refuse to define. Every person has enemies inside them, not human ones but mental ones. They live in your habits, your beliefs, your patterns, your comfort zones. And they've been trained by repetition to control your decisions without you even realizing it. The first enemy is comfort itself, the illusion of safety that keeps you from growing. It tells you to slow down when you should speed up. It convinces you to rest when you haven't earned it. It makes mediocrity feel sustainable. But here's the truth. The longer you stay comfortable, the weaker you become. Growth doesn't live in ease. It lives in tension, that space where you're unsure, uncomfortable, and slightly afraid. That's where the real you is forged. Comfort doesn't want that version of you to exist. It wants you predictable, passive, and repeatable. It wants you to hit snooze on your potential every single day. The second enemy is excuses. Excuses are comfort soldiers. They justify your limits. They sound logical. They sound reasonable. But they are lies that protect your fears. I'm too tired. I don't have time. I'll start when things calm down. Each excuse is a negotiation with failure. And every time you make one, you're choosing temporary relief over permanent strength. Because the truth is, you don't need perfect conditions to grow. You need discipline when it's inconvenient. You need movement when motivation disappears. You need to stop believing the stories that make quitting sound acceptable. The third enemy is overthinking. It disguises itself as intelligence, as preparation, analysis, caution. But overthinking is a form of fear. It's the paralysis that comes from trying to predict outcomes instead of creating them. You don't need more time to think. You need courage to act. You can't analyze your way into evolution. You have to move, make mistakes, learn, and adapt. Every second you spend trapped in analysis is another second your potential is left untapped. Your brain is wired for survival, not growth. If you let it, it will always choose safety, and safety will always disguise itself as logic. The fourth enemy is doubt. Doubt is the voice that questions your worth every time you try to rise. It tells you, you're not ready, you're not good enough, you'll probably fail anyway. Doubt thrives on your past failures. It feeds on your memories of pain. It reminds you of everything that went wrong before but never what could go right now. But here's what doubt fears most: proof. Every time you take action, you weaken it. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you silence it. Every time you execute despite fear, you prove it wrong. The goal isn't to eliminate doubt, it's to move through it until it loses power. The fifth enemy is comparison. This one is subtle, because it feels harmless at first. Scrolling through other people's lives, comparing timelines, measuring progress. But comparison is theft. It steals focus, confidence, and gratitude. It tricks you into believing someone else's pace should be yours. You start competing in a race that was never meant for you. You start chasing goals you don't even want, just because they look impressive. The truth? Comparison blinds you to your own potential. Because while you're watching everyone else, your own growth sits in the corner, ignored, waiting, fading. Focus isn't built by looking around. It's built by looking within. The sixth enemy is ego. Ego isn't confidence. Ego is fear wearing pride as a mask. It keeps you from learning because it can't handle being wrong. It stops you from asking for help because it needs to appear strong. It resists growth because growth requires humility. Ego doesn't care if you succeed. It only cares if you look like you're succeeding. And that's why it's lethal. The higher your ego, the harder it becomes to self-correct. And without self-correction, you can't evolve. True strength isn't defending your flaws, it's confronting them. You don't grow by being right, you grow by being real. The seventh enemy is distraction. In the digital age, distraction is comfort's most powerful weapon. Your attention is under attack every second, by notifications, trends, noise, and instant gratification. Distraction doesn't destroy you instantly, it drains you slowly. It breaks your focus one swipe at a time. It kills deep work and replaces it with dopamine loops. And here's the catch. Distraction always disguises itself as rest. You tell yourself you're taking a break, but hours later, nothing in your life has changed. The solution isn't to eliminate distractions completely. It's to control your environment before it controls you. Design your day around your priorities, not impulses. If you don't schedule your growth, your comfort will schedule your downfall. Now understand this. Each of these enemies, comfort, excuses, overthinking, doubt, comparison, ego, distraction, isn't trying to destroy you. They're trying to protect you. They exist to shield you from pain, rejection, embarrassment, failure. They think they're keeping you safe. But what they're really doing is keeping you small. Growth begins the moment you stop needing protection from discomfort. Because discomfort is the birthplace of greatness. To identify your enemies, you must be brutally honest with yourself. What excuses do I repeat the most? What comforts do I cling to when things get hard? Where do I hide behind logic instead of facing fear? What truth about myself am I still avoiding? This self-interrogation is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Because naming your enemy is the first act of power. Once you define it, it loses its disguise. Once you recognize it, you can resist it. You can't win a war you refuse to admit you're fighting. Most people will never identify their enemies because it's easier to pretend they don't exist. It's easier to blame circumstances than confront patterns. Easier to blame time than admit you waste it. Easier to call it bad luck than admit it's bad discipline. But not you. You're listening to this because you're ready to see clearly, to hold a mirror up to your habits and call them by name. That's what separates growth from stagnation. Awareness always precedes transformation. Chapter 3. Every single day the war within resets. You don't win it once and walk away a champion. You win it through repetition, through small victories that stack into transformation. Each morning you wake up, you face two sides of yourself. The version that wants to grow and the version that wants to stay the same. And the truth is, both are hungry. Whichever one you feed becomes stronger. That's why your day is more than a series of tasks. It's a series of choices. You choose who you'll become with every decision you make. You either feed your strength or you feed your weakness. There is no in between. The weaker version of you thrives on comfort. It seeks the path of least resistance. It tells you, skip the workout. You deserve a break. It says, one more episode won't hurt. It whispers, you can start tomorrow. And it sounds rational. It always does. Because weakness doesn't come in the form of destruction. It comes disguised as self-care. It convinces you that peace means avoiding effort. But that kind of peace isn't real. It's sedation. And every time you choose sedation over struggle, the weaker you grow stronger. The stronger version of you, on the other hand, doesn't chase ease. It chooses integrity. It does the right thing even when no one's watching. It chooses to move forward even when no one's clapping. It's built in silence, through the discipline of daily decisions that no one sees but everyone feels. That version of you doesn't rely on motivation. It relies on commitment. Motivation is fleeting. It dies the moment you feel tired. Commitment endures. It lives even when you don't feel like it. Winning once doesn't make you disciplined. Winning consistently does. And consistency is forged in repetition, not results. Every day you will be tempted to slip back into the comfort of yesterday. You'll hear the same old excuses dressed in new words. I'll do it later. I'm not ready yet. I need to rest my mind. But recognize what's happening. That's your weaker self trying to survive. It knows that every disciplined decision you make is another nail in its coffin. Discipline isn't punishment. It's alignment. It's choosing the version of yourself that deserves to win. Think of it this way, each day gives you a scoreboard. Every choice adds a point to one side. Hit snooze? 1 point to weakness. Wake up on time? 1 point to strength. Scroll mindlessly? Weakness. Read, write, or train? Strength. Complain? Weakness. Find a solution? Strength. By the end of the day, you'll know who's winning. It's not a mystery, your habits tell the story. And if you're honest, you'll see patterns. Days when weakness wins by default because you didn't show up consciously. Days when strength dominates because you stayed intentional. The goal isn't perfection, it's direction. Because even 1 more point for strength today is progress. Discipline isn't built in moments of inspiration. It's built in moments of resistance. When everything in you wants to stop, that's when the choice matters most. You see, everyone wants to be mentally strong until it's time to make uncomfortable decisions. Everyone wants growth until it demands sacrifice. But growth has a price, and weakness pays in excuses. Strength pays in effort. You can't wish your way into greatness. You have to fight your way there, one small, deliberate choice at a time. Choosing your side daily means accepting that growth will feel repetitive. There's no magic in discipline. It's doing the same things even when they've lost their novelty. That's what separates people who rise from people who remain. The ones who rise understand that excellence is built on boring consistency. The ones who remain keep waiting for excitement, for motivation, for the right moment. But the right moment never comes. Only the present moment does. And if you don't seize it, you feed the wrong side again. There's a reason why most people never change. They don't lose once. They lose daily. They think skipping one workout, one study session, one hard conversation doesn't matter. But small losses compound. Every undisciplined day silently strengthens the habits that hold you back. and every disciplined day weakens them. You're never standing still, you're always moving in one direction or the other. You're either training strength or training weakness. You're either reinforcing discipline or rehearsing avoidance. And those repetitions, invisible as they seem, decide your destiny. That's why awareness is your greatest weapon. When you start seeing each moment as a choice between power and passivity, you reclaim control. You stop operating on autopilot and start living on purpose. Discipline isn't about doing everything perfectly, it's about refusing to let weakness win without a fight. Some days you'll lose. That's fine. Everyone does. But the key is to return stronger the next day, to never let one loss turn into a pattern. Resilience isn't about never falling, it's about never settling where you fell. There will be mornings when your mind tells you, take it easy. You've earned it. And maybe you have, but discipline means you don't let emotions dictate your effort. You do it because it's who you are, not because it's what you feel like doing. That's what real strength looks like. Not loud, not flashy, not always confident. Just consistent. You win this war quietly. You win it through action, through structure, through commitment that doesn't break under fatigue. The weak self wants a comfortable day. The strong self wants a meaningful life. You choose which one wins, every single day. Remember, the battle isn't won by massive breakthroughs. It's won by tiny victories repeated endlessly. You don't become disciplined by accident. You become disciplined by choice, repeated so many times that it becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, it's no longer a fight. It's just who you are. That's the goal. Not to struggle forever, but to build yourself into someone for whom strength is second nature. Because when that day comes, when discipline becomes default and your choices align without effort, that's when you stop surviving the war within and start winning it every day. Chapter 4. You can't grow while lying to yourself. Not about effort. Not about excuses. Not about why you're still stuck in the same place. Growth begins where denial ends. The truth is simple. You can't fix what you refuse to admit is broken. And most people don't lack potential. They lack honesty. They'll say they want change, but their actions tell a different story. They'll talk about goals, but their habits expose their comfort. They'll say they're trying, but their discipline says otherwise. They'll swear they're committed, but their patterns reveal they're only convenient. That's the gap, the space between your words and your reality. And brutal honesty is the only thing that can close it. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be real. Because self-deception is the slowest poison of all. It convinces you you're doing enough when you're not. It tells you you're progressing when you're only maintaining. It makes you believe your intentions matter more than your actions. But intentions don't change your life, behavior does. You can say you want to get stronger, but if you're skipping the reps, you're lying to yourself. You can say you want to be disciplined, but if you keep breaking your promises, you're lying to yourself. You can say you want growth, but if you keep choosing comfort, you're lying to yourself. You can't build power on a foundation of delusion. Self-honesty hurts because it removes the illusion that things are fine. It forces you to confront the truth, that maybe you could have tried harder, focused deeper, or stayed consistent longer. But that pain is productive. It's the kind of pain that burns away excuses and reveals potential. Denial feels safe, but it traps you. Honesty feels dangerous, but it frees you. That's why honesty is your weapon. It cuts through ego, through justification, through the stories you tell yourself to feel better. It exposes the truth, and the truth is where transformation begins. There's a reason most people avoid being honest with themselves. It's easier to stay blind than to see your own reflection clearly. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending. That's why growth demands courage, not just to face the world, but to face yourself. Ask yourself, am I truly doing my best, or am I just doing what's comfortable? Am I disciplined or just busy? Am I consistent or just motivated when it's easy? Am I growing or just repeating the same cycles with new excuses? Most people are experts at lying to others. But the most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself. Honesty doesn't destroy your confidence, it builds it. Because when you're honest about where you are, you gain clarity about what needs to change. You can't evolve in confusion. You can't fix what you refuse to face. If you keep pretending your lack of progress is someone else's fault, you'll never take control. If you keep convincing yourself that effort alone is enough, you'll never measure effectiveness. Self-honesty is brutal, but it's also the beginning of power. Because once you stop lying, you stop hiding. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You already know why you're not where you want to be. You just don't like the answer. You know the habits you should have broken. You know the time you've wasted. You know the moments you gave in when you could have pushed through. And yet, the mind will do anything to protect your comfort, even if it costs your growth. It will rationalize. It will justify. It will create narratives that make you feel okay about staying the same. But feeling okay and being okay are not the same thing. And if you confuse them, you'll spend your life stuck in a loop, slightly uncomfortable but never evolving. Being honest with yourself doesn't mean beating yourself up. It means holding yourself accountable. It means looking at your results and saying, "This is on me," and that's good news. Because if it's your fault, it's also your fix. Self-honesty gives you control. The moment you admit you're the problem, you regain the power to become the solution. That's what denial steals from you, responsibility. And without responsibility, you're powerless. But the moment you stop lying, the game changes. You stop waiting for better days. You start creating them. People often say they want the truth, until it exposes their comfort. They say they want clarity, until it requires change. They say they want results, until they see the price. But honesty doesn't just reveal the truth, it demands action. It demands alignment between your words and your effort. Because every time your actions contradict your goals, you weaken your identity. And every time they align, you build integrity. Integrity is quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you're doing the work even when no one's watching. You can't fake that. You earn it one honest day at a time. Ask yourself today, where am I still lying to myself? Where am I hiding behind potential instead of performance? What truth have I been avoiding because it threatens my comfort? Those questions are uncomfortable, but they're necessary. Because self-awareness without honesty is just observation. Honesty turns awareness into change. The people who evolve the fastest aren't the most talented. They're the most honest about their flaws, about their effort, about their results. They don't defend their weaknesses, they dissect them. They don't justify failure, they learn from it. They don't pretend to be perfect, they commit to being better. So be brutally honest with yourself. About your consistency. About your focus. About your excuses. Don't protect your ego, protect your evolution. It's not shameful to admit you've been lazy. It's powerful. Because now you can change it. The truth might sting, but it also sets you free. Free from denial. Free from stagnation. Free from pretending you're trying when you're not. Self-honesty is your weapon. And the more you wield it, the sharper you become. Because growth doesn't happen when you tell yourself you're doing fine. It happens when you look yourself in the mirror and say, "I can do better. And starting now, I will." Chapter 5. The comfort zone kills more dreams than fear ever could. Because fear at least reminds you that something matters. Comfort, on the other hand, convinces you that nothing does. It tells you to stay right where you are, safe, familiar, predictable. It rewards you with temporary peace while quietly robbing you of long-term growth. And that's the trick. Comfort disguises itself as stability when in reality, it's slow decay. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you trade potential for pleasure. And every easy choice strengthens your weaker self. You weren't built for comfort, you were built for evolution. And evolution demands pressure. Growth is a violent process. It breaks your patterns, stretches your limits, and forces you to face what you've been avoiding. It's not meant to feel easy, it's meant to feel unfamiliar. Discomfort is not punishment, it's proof that you're progressing. Because every time you feel resistance, it means you're moving beyond who you were yesterday. The problem is, most people mistake discomfort for danger. They interpret unease as a sign to stop instead of a signal to grow. But discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the evidence that change is happening. Think about it, everything meaningful in life comes with resistance. The first workout hurts. The first attempt at discipline feels unnatural. The first step toward change feels terrifying. But that's the price of transformation. If it were easy, it wouldn't be growth, it would be maintenance. You can't evolve without friction. You can't build strength without strain. And you can't find purpose without discomfort. So when life starts to feel heavy, don't retreat. Recognize what's happening. You're upgrading. Comfort will always try to pull you back. It will whisper, "Take it easy. You've done enough." It will make you believe that staying still is safe. But safety is an illusion. The world is constantly changing, and if you stay still, you're not safe, you're falling behind. You're slowly becoming irrelevant to your own potential. Comfort is seductive because it offers instant gratification. It feels like peace, feels like relief, but it's fake. The real peace comes from progress, from knowing that even in discomfort, you're moving forward. You have to understand, your mind is wired to keep you alive, not to make you grow. It seeks familiarity. It avoids risk, loves patterns. So when you start doing something new, waking up early, training hard, building a habit, your brain rebels. It says, "This doesn't feel right." And it's correct. It doesn't feel right because it's new. Growth always feels wrong before it feels right. That's why so many people never make it past the first stage of transformation. They misinterpret discomfort as failure when it's actually feedback. It's not saying, "Stop." It's saying, "You're doing something different. Keep going." Every easy choice adds weight to the weaker side of you. Skip the workout. One win for weakness. Procrastinate on your goals. Another win for weakness. Choose convenience over commitment. Weakness again. These small moments seem harmless, but they compound. And one day you wake up wondering why you feel unfulfilled, why you've stopped growing, why life feels dull. It's because the comfort you chose daily has become your cage. You built it brick by brick, through avoidance, through hesitation, through excuses that sounded logical but weren't true. The comfort zone isn't a place, it's a mindset. And once it traps you, it doesn't let go easily. But there's good news, discomfort works the same way. Every hard choice strengthens your stronger self. Every uncomfortable action builds mental armor. Every moment of resistance pushes your limits outward. You can train your mind to crave growth instead of ease. The first step? Stop labeling discomfort as pain. Start seeing it as progress. Because what you call hard today will one day become your normal. And that's the beauty of evolution. The very things that once broke you will later build you. You don't need to chase pain, you just need to stop running from it. Pain itself isn't the point, progress is. But you can't have one without the other. When you stop avoiding difficulty, life expands. You begin to see that the struggle you feared was the very thing preparing you for the strength you needed. Comfort makes you soft. Discomfort makes you sharp. And in a world that rewards ease, being sharp is your advantage. Every day you get to choose what kind of life you're building. One of convenience, predictable, comfortable, slowly shrinking. Or one of conviction, challenging, evolving, deeply fulfilling. Comfort offers you the illusion of control. Discomfort gives you real power, the kind that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes next. Most people want growth without growing pains. But that's like wanting muscles without lifting weight. Impossible. If you want to rise, you have to be willing to outgrow your comfort. So stop worshiping ease. Stop mistaking rest for peace and comfort for happiness. The life you want doesn't live inside your comfort zone, it lives on the other side of it. And every step you take into discomfort is a declaration that you're done settling. Discomfort is the tax you pay for evolution. The pain of effort today is the price of freedom tomorrow. So don't curse it, embrace it. Because the truth is simple, the path to your potential will never be comfortable. And that's exactly why it's worth walking. Chapter 6. A soldier doesn't negotiate with fatigue. They don't argue with the mission, and they don't wait for comfort before moving. They act because discipline has replaced emotion. That's how you have to train your mind, like a soldier. Unflinching, focused, purpose-driven. Because life will not wait for your motivation. And the battle for your potential is fought daily in silence when no one's watching. The truth is, most people quit not because they're weak, but because they negotiate. They let feelings vote on decisions that require discipline. They say things like, "I'll do it when I feel ready," or "I'll start when I have more energy." But a soldier doesn't wait to feel ready. They execute because the mission demands it, not because emotion allows it. You have to stop expecting life to feel easy before you act. It never will. Discipline means you move especially when you don't feel like it. That's how you build mental armor, repetition through resistance. Every challenge you face is a drill. Every moment of fatigue, every excuse, every setback, they're not punishments, they're training. They exist to harden your focus and strengthen your resilience. Because when you train your mind like a soldier, you stop running from struggle. You start using it. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start saying, this is preparing me. That shift changes everything. A soldier's strength isn't in physical power, it's in mental control. Their body obeys because their mind commands. They understand that emotion is a luxury they can't always afford. You must learn the same discipline to keep moving through chaos, through fatigue, through doubt. Because every time you let emotion decide, you weaken the structure of your purpose. Every time you say, I'll rest because I don't feel like it, you teach your mind that emotion wins. But every time you push forward despite emotion, you reinforce strength. You send a signal to your brain, I'm in control, not my feelings. That's how soldiers are built. That's how leaders are formed. That's how growth becomes your default. Training your mind like a soldier means mastering 3 principles: clarity, consistency, and control. Clarity means knowing exactly what you're fighting for. You can't fight effectively without a mission. When your goals are vague, your effort becomes scattered. You have to define the battlefield. What do you want? Why does it matter? And what's the cost of quitting? When you're clear about those 3 things, doubt loses its power. Consistency means showing up the same way every day, whether you feel like it or not. Because soldiers don't train only when conditions are perfect. They train in rain, in fatigue, in pain, because consistency builds reliability. You can't trust a mind that quits when it's tired. You have to train it until action becomes instinct. Control means mastering your reaction under pressure. When chaos hits, you don't crumble. You breathe, assess, and move with purpose. That's the difference between emotion-driven people and mission-driven people. One reacts, the other responds. And that single distinction decides who survives and who evolves. Training your mind like a soldier doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means disciplining it. It means letting emotion inform you, not control you. Fear reminds you to stay alert. Anger reminds you that something matters. Sadness reminds you that you care. But none of those emotions should dictate your next move. Because if you let emotion lead, it'll pull you toward comfort every time. Discipline is the chain of command. Your emotions report to your purpose, not the other way around. The difference between average and exceptional isn't talent. It's mental conditioning. Exceptional people train when it's inconvenient. They adapt when conditions change. They operate with precision when everyone else panics. And that's not by accident, that's habit. They've trained their minds to follow through no matter how they feel. They've built systems, rituals, and standards that override impulse. Because they understand this truth. Your emotions are temporary, your standards are not. So when you feel tired, remember, fatigue is part of the drill. When you feel discouraged, remind yourself, adversity is your classroom. When you feel like quitting, recognize, that's the test. Every time you pass one of these tests, your mind gets stronger. You become more disciplined, more grounded, more unshakable. And over time, that strength compounds. You stop getting derailed by minor obstacles. You stop needing external motivation. You stop waiting for permission to act. That's mental conditioning, repetition until resilience becomes automatic. A soldier doesn't fear the storm, they prepare for it. They know chaos will come, but they train so well that even in chaos, their response is precise. That's what you must build, composure under chaos. To act with control even when everything around you feels uncertain. Because if you can stay disciplined under stress, you can't be broken. No matter what happens, you'll always return to mission mode. Remember this. Your mind is a muscle. Every time you discipline it, it grows stronger. Every time you give in, it grows softer. And the difference between a soldier and a civilian mindset is simple. One trains for reality, the other escapes from it. The world doesn't reward the one who feels ready. It rewards the one who's trained to be ready. So start training like your future depends on it, because it does. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be consistent. You don't need to be the strongest. You just need to be disciplined enough to keep showing up. Because when discipline becomes your default, emotion loses control. And when emotion loses control, focus takes over. And when focus takes over, you become unstoppable. That's the goal. To be unshaken by fatigue, unaffected by doubt, unbroken by struggle. To act with clarity, consistency, and control, no matter what. That's not just strength. That's self-mastery. Chapter 7. Failure. The word everyone fears, but the experience everyone needs. You can't become strong by avoiding what breaks you. You become strong by understanding it, by studying it, by rising above it. Every mistake you've made, every setback you've faced, those weren't punishments. They were training sessions. Each one exposing a blind spot you couldn't see while things were easy. Failure is not your enemy. It's your instructor. It doesn't show up to humiliate you. It shows up to teach you what comfort never could. You grow through failure, not from avoiding it. Because avoiding failure means avoiding feedback. And without feedback, you're walking blind. Every time you fail, you receive data, direct proof of what works and what doesn't. And the people who rise are the ones who analyze that data, adapt, and apply. Most people never grow because they only tolerate failure. They don't study it. They run from it, label it as proof they're not good enough, and in doing so, they repeat the same mistakes. But the ones who understand growth, they dissect failure. They ask questions. They break it down piece by piece until it loses its power. They know that the lesson buried in failure is always worth the pain that delivered it. Failure isn't a signal to quit, it's a mirror. It reflects who you really are under pressure. When things go wrong, your true habits, mindset, and limits are revealed. You see where you cut corners. You see where you got lazy. You see where ego replaced preparation. And if you're honest enough to face that reflection, you come back sharper. But if you let your pride get in the way, you'll keep reliving the same lessons until you finally learn them. The strongest minds in history didn't become resilient by avoiding mistakes. They became resilient because they failed more often than most ever tried. They understood that every failure hardened their mental armor, while every avoidance softened it. You don't learn emotional control from winning, you learn it from loss. You don't build perseverance in success, you build it when success refuses to come. Each failure is resistance training for your mindset. It tears your old beliefs, forces you to rebuild, and makes you stronger each time. The more you fail and learn, the less fragile you become. Fragility comes from avoidance. When you shield yourself from difficulty, you build a false sense of confidence, one that shatters at the first sign of real challenge. But when you face failure often, it stops scaring you. You start seeing patterns. You start predicting problems before they arrive. You start trusting your ability to recover, and that's real confidence. Real confidence isn't thinking you'll never fail again. It's knowing that even when you do, you'll rise faster, smarter, tougher. That's anti-fragility, growth through adversity. Failure isn't permanent unless you stop learning. Most people get trapped in failure because they attach it to identity. They say, I failed, so I'm a failure. But that's not true. Failure is an event, not a definition. It's a checkpoint, not a finish line. If you failed, it means you tried something worth risking. And trying means you're in motion, and motion is progress. So instead of labeling failure as defeat, label it as feedback. Because the truth is, every successful person you admire has failed more times than you've even started. The difference is that they stayed curious. They didn't let shame cloud the lesson. They didn't use failure as an excuse to quit. They used it as a strategy to improve. Every setback became a case study. What went wrong? Where did I get comfortable? What skill or mindset do I need to build next time? They treated failure like data, not drama. And because of that, they evolved faster than everyone else. Failure teaches you something comfort never will: how to handle pain without breaking. Every time you fail and keep going, you build calluses on your mindset. You stop being shocked by resistance. You stop being crushed by temporary loss. You stop expecting the path to be smooth. That's mental toughness, not the absence of pain, but the strength to keep moving through it. Because once you've failed enough, you realize something powerful. Failure never killed you, It just humbled you. It refined you. Prepared you. And over time, you stop fearing it altogether. There's a moment that happens when failure no longer feels like loss. It feels like information. When that happens, you've reached a new level of growth. You stop avoiding hard things because you know the cost of inaction is worse than the pain of falling short. You stop hesitating because you understand that speed of correction matters more than speed of perfection. And you start living differently, bolder, freer, more willing to try, fail, learn, and rise again. Because that's what evolution looks like in real time. So the next time you fail, don't retreat. Don't spiral into self-pity. Don't waste time wishing it were easier. Ask yourself instead, what is this trying to teach me? What weakness did this reveal? What pattern do I need to fix? And then use it. Use it like a weapon. Use it as leverage for your next move. Every failure can either break you or build you, and that decision is made in your response, not in the result. Remember this. Failure doesn't define you. Your reaction to it does. Each mistake, each misstep, each fall, it's a rep in your training. It's a scar that proves you showed up. And the more scars you carry, the more stories you hold, stories of resilience, wisdom, and growth. Because people who never fail never live fully. They stay in the shallow end of life, safe but stagnant. You're meant for deeper waters, and that means getting knocked down again and again until you learn to swim through the storms. Failure is not your punishment. It's your preparation. It's not there to end your story, it's there to refine your strength for the next chapter. You don't rise in spite of failure. You rise because of it. So stop fearing it. Start studying it. And keep moving, bruised, wiser, and unbreakable. Because if you can learn from failure instead of running from it, there's nothing left in life that can defeat you. Chapter 8. Silence is underrated in a world addicted to noise. Everyone wants to be seen grinding, heard achieving, noticed evolving. But real growth doesn't need an audience. Because validation is the loudest distraction. The people who build true strength, the kind that lasts, do it quietly. No announcements. No performances. Just relentless focus in private. They understand that growth is personal, not performative. You don't need the world to see your progress. You just need to earn it. Growth doesn't need noise or validation. It needs solitude, patience, and consistency. Because when you start chasing attention, you start compromising intention. You begin to care more about looking successful than actually becoming successful. And that's where most people get lost, in the show. They broadcast their plans, their routines, their every move, hoping for recognition that never lasts. But noise doesn't build discipline. Silence does. In silence, there's no applause to motivate you. No one watching. No one clapping. Just you versus your own mind. And that's where mastery begins. The most focused people in the world understand something simple. Results speak louder than explanations. You don't have to convince anyone who you are. Your consistency will do that for you. You don't have to prove your work will prove itself. That's the quiet power of discipline. It doesn't crave attention. It craves execution. Because execution, done in silence, echoes louder than any announcement ever could. Silence isn't weakness, it's concentration. It's energy redirected inward, not wasted outward. When you stop seeking validation, you regain control of your focus. You start building for the right reasons, not to be seen but to become. You don't have to post every step. You don't have to explain every move. You don't have to justify your pace. Your evolution doesn't require permission. Because the truth is, the loudest workers rarely last. Noise burns fast. Focus endures. The reason silence is strength is simple. It protects your process. When you keep your growth private, you shield it from opinions, judgment, and premature praise. You remove external influence from something deeply internal. Because validation can corrupt discipline faster than failure ever could. When you start performing for approval, you stop performing for progress. And that's when growth turns into performance, shallow, temporary, and fragile. So protect your work by keeping it sacred. Build in private. Reveal through mastery. Silence also teaches patience. It reminds you that progress doesn't always look exciting. That most days are repetition, not revelation. That consistency doesn't need witnesses. It just needs persistence. You'll have days where no one notices your effort, where your progress feels invisible, where you question if it's even working. But that's exactly where growth hides, in the unseen, the uncelebrated, the unshared moments of pure focus. The ones where you keep showing up for yourself even when no one else would know if you quit. That's the strength silence builds. When you train yourself to be silent, you train yourself to listen, to your own thoughts, your instincts, your environment. You become more aware, more intentional. You begin to notice what actually matters, not the praise, not the attention, not the noise, but the work itself. And in that awareness, your standards rise. You stop comparing. You stop competing. You just build. Because true focus is not about speed, it's about depth. And silence is where depth lives. Think about every great transformation, physical, mental, emotional. It didn't happen in public. It happened in isolation. In early mornings, late nights, quiet discipline, and invisible effort. Every legend began unseen. Every success was first a secret. Because real power grows underground, in the roots, before it ever breaks the surface. And when it finally does, it doesn't need to explain. It simply shows. Silence also gives you something noise never can: peace. Peace to focus. Peace to think. Peace to plan and execute without pressure. When you live quietly, you stop reacting. You stop performing for attention. You start acting with purpose. You realize that you don't need people to understand your grind. You just need to keep grinding until your results make silence impossible. That's the kind of strength that lasts. The quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who no longer needs validation to keep going. There's a power that comes with saying nothing and doing everything. With staying grounded while others chase recognition. With being underestimated because you're too focused to explain yourself. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them wonder what you're doing. Because when the results arrive, they'll answer every question. You don't owe the world your process, only your progress. Remember this. Noise fades. Hype dies. Trends disappear. But consistency, quiet, disciplined, deliberate consistency, endures. So stop trying to be seen. Start focusing on becoming undeniable. Build quietly. Grow privately. And when it's time, let mastery speak for you. Because silence is strength and results are the loudest sound there is. Chapter 9. Emotion says, I'm tired. Discipline says, we move anyway. That's the difference between people who grow and people who give up. Who's in command? Every day your emotions will try to take the wheel. They'll whisper reasons to rest, delay, quit, or compromise. And if you listen long enough, they'll sound convincing. But emotion is temporary. Discipline is permanent. You can't build a strong life on weak feelings. Because feelings change with the weather, discipline doesn't. The mind obeys the habits you repeat. If you let emotion dictate action, your mind learns that comfort wins. But if you let discipline lead, your mind learns that purpose wins. That's why every decision matters. Not because of what it gives you today, but because of what it teaches your brain about who's in charge. When you give in to emotion, you reinforce weakness. When you push through emotion, you reinforce strength. You're not just building habits, you're building hierarchy. You're teaching your mind what voice to obey. Discipline isn't about ignoring emotions. It's about containing them, commanding them instead of being commanded by them. You'll feel tired. You'll feel unmotivated. You'll feel uninspired. That's normal. But you still show up. You still do the work. You still keep your promise. Because discipline is loyalty to your future self. Emotion focuses on the now. Discipline focuses on the outcome. And every time you choose outcome over comfort, you grow sharper, stronger, and more in control. Emotion makes decisions based on relief. Discipline makes decisions based on results. Emotion wants the shortcut. Discipline wants the standard. Emotion says, I've done enough. Discipline says, I can still do better. That's the war happening inside you every single day. Comfort versus conviction, impulse versus integrity. And every small decision tilts the scale toward one side or the other. You don't become disciplined in a day. You become disciplined in the moments when it would have been easier not to be. The truth is, emotions aren't bad, they just need leadership. They're signals, not commands. Fear says, this matters. Anger says, this isn't fair. Sadness says, something valuable was lost. But it's your job to interpret those signals with clarity, not chaos. To act from control, not reaction. Discipline gives you that clarity. It's what allows you to respond to emotion without surrendering to it. Because when emotion drives, you crash. When discipline drives, you arrive. Imagine your mind as a battlefield. On one side, emotion, impulsive, unpredictable, loud. On the other, discipline, calm, consistent, focused. Emotion attacks with noise. Discipline wins with silence. The more you train, the faster you learn to recognize the tricks your emotions use to control you. Procrastination disguised as rest. Avoidance disguised as strategy. Excuses disguised as self-care. But a disciplined mind sees through the disguise. It doesn't negotiate with emotions. It directs them. Training discipline is like training a muscle. You don't start strong, you build strength through resistance. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you're training that muscle. Every time you keep a promise despite fatigue, you're strengthening your control. Discipline isn't built on motivation. It's built on repetition. You train it daily until it becomes instinct. And once it becomes instinct, emotion loses power. You don't even argue with it anymore. You just move. Most people let emotions run their schedule. They work when they feel inspired. They commit when they feel ready. They quit when they feel overwhelmed. But the discipline, no. You can't trust emotion to guide purpose. Because emotion seeks comfort, and purpose demands discomfort. You don't show up because you feel like it. You show up because you said you would. That's integrity, doing what you promised long after the mood you made the promise in has faded. When discipline leads, you don't waste energy debating with yourself. You don't ask, should I? You already decided. The time for negotiation passed the moment you set the goal. Emotion asks, what do I feel like doing? Discipline answers, whatever moves me forward. That's what separates the consistent from the inconsistent. Decisions made by purpose, not feeling. And here's the irony, the more disciplined you become, the better your emotions get. Because emotions feed off chaos. When your actions are erratic, your emotions spiral. When your actions are structured, your emotions stabilize. Discipline doesn't suppress emotion, it protects it. It keeps your emotions from ruling your life and ruining your focus. You can still feel everything, but you act with control, not impulse. That's emotional intelligence in motion. There will be days when your mind screams, stop. Days when everything in you wants to quit. Days when you question if it's worth it. That's when discipline shows up. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. It whispers, we move anyway. And that one decision, to move anyway, becomes the foundation of every great outcome. Because real discipline isn't built when things are easy. It's forged when things are hard. When you act not out of comfort, but out of conviction. Remember this. Your emotions are passengers. Your discipline is the driver. Let emotion ride along. Let it speak. Let it be felt. But never hand it the wheel. Because the moment emotion takes control, consistency dies. And without consistency, greatness never arrives. So command your emotions or they will command you. Use discipline as your compass, your structure, your anchor. Train your mind to obey standards, not moods. Because at the end of the day, your feelings don't build your future. Your habits do. And the ones who master emotion through discipline, they move forward no matter how they feel. They stay calm under pressure. They build momentum even in chaos. That's what power looks like. Quiet, controlled, relentless. Emotion says, I can't. Discipline says, watch me. Chapter 10. Your mind listens to everything you say, especially the things you whisper to yourself. Every thought you repeat is a command. Every belief you reinforce becomes a blueprint. And over time, those commands build your identity, for better or worse. Most people don't realize it, but they're training their minds all day long. Not through action, but through self-talk. Through the quiet words that run on repeat. I'm not good enough. I'll never get there. That's just who I am. Those thoughts aren't harmless. They're instructions, and your mind follows orders. Your thoughts are training commands. They shape your identity. When you say, I can't, your brain doesn't question it, it obeys. It stops looking for solutions. It shuts down possibility. It believes the mission is impossible. But when you say, I'm becoming, everything changes. You're not denying the challenge, you're reframing it. You're shifting from limitation to evolution. I can't do this becomes, I'm learning how. I'm not disciplined becomes, I'm becoming more consistent. I've failed too much becomes, I've learned enough to win next time. That's the power of inner dialogue. It turns obstacles into instructions. Your self-talk is not a reflection of reality. It's the code that programs it. If you keep feeding your mind weakness, it will become weak. If you feed it strength, it will grow strong. And the way you speak to yourself determines which side wins. The version of you that evolves or the version that stays stuck. You can't build a powerful life with disempowering language. Your words are weights. Every time you say, I can't, you add resistance. Every time you say, I will, you build momentum. The strongest minds in the world don't just train their bodies or habits. They train their language. They know that words shape focus, and focus shapes results. They talk to themselves like soldiers preparing for battle, not like victims waiting for rescue. Their words are intentional, precise, and empowering. They don't say, this is too hard. They say, this will make me stronger. They don't say, I failed. They say, I'm learning faster than before. They don't talk about who they were. They talk about who they're becoming. That's not delusion. That's design. Your inner dialogue is your strategy. It determines how you respond to fatigue, to fear, to failure. When the weak voice inside says, you can't keep going, discipline should interrupt. We move anyway. When emotion says, it's too much, purpose should answer. We've handled worse. When doubt says, you're not ready, focus should whisper, prepare faster. That's how you reprogram your internal system, by replacing reaction with response, emotion with command, weakness with direction. You're not your thoughts, you're the one who trains them. The mistake most people make is letting their thoughts speak unchecked. They treat every passing fear or doubt as truth. But not every thought deserves belief. Some thoughts are just noise, echoes of old conditioning. You were not born insecure, unmotivated, or broken. You were trained that way, by repetition, by environment, by words that took root. And the same way you were programmed, you can be reprogrammed. It starts with awareness, then repetition, then belief. Rewriting your inner dialogue isn't about pretending everything is positive. It's about making your thoughts productive. It's not fake optimism. It's mental discipline. It's saying, this is hard, but I can handle it. I'm scared, but I'm moving anyway. I failed, but I'm still in the fight. You're not lying to yourself. You're leading yourself. Because leadership starts in the mind. If you can't lead your own thoughts, you'll be led by your emotions, your fears, or your past. And that's why self-talk is not optional. It's strategy. Think of your mind like a command center. Every word you speak internally becomes a signal, to act, to pause, to quit, or to rise. So if your mind is constantly hearing weakness, don't be surprised when your actions mirror it. If your self-talk is defensive, your life will always feel like a reaction. But if your language becomes assertive, intentional, and forward-focused, everything shifts. You stop waiting for belief. You start building it. Confidence is not the absence of doubt. It's the dominance of a stronger inner voice. Every morning you have two choices. You can replay the same mental script that's kept you average, or you can rewrite it. You can tell yourself, I'll try, or you can declare, I will. You can say, I hope, or you can say, I'm doing. You can say, maybe someday, or you can say, it starts today. Your brain doesn't care about intention. It responds to instruction. And the instructions you give it become the identity you live. Reprogramming isn't instant, it's repetition. You can't say one positive thing and expect transformation. You have to train it like a habit. Every time a negative thought appears, replace it, consciously, immediately, repeatedly. If your mind says, I can't handle this, answer, yes I can, I've handled worse. If it says, I always fail, respond, no, I'm learning to win. If it says, "I'll never change," remind it, change is already happening. You're not lying. You're leading your focus. You're teaching your brain what direction to aim in. Becoming mentally strong isn't about silencing fear. It's about giving courage a louder voice. It's about turning self-talk into self-training. Every time you speak powerfully, you strengthen the neural pathways that support resilience. You're rewiring your brain for grit, focus, and growth. And over time, your thoughts evolve from doubt to direction, from fear to fuel. You start to think like someone who wins, not hopes to, but expects to. So reprogram your dialogue daily. Guard it like a soldier guards his commands. Speak with intention, not impulse. Because the voice you hear the most is your own, and it has the power to build or break you. Stop feeding yourself weakness disguised as realism. Start feeding yourself strength disguised as self-respect. You are the commander of your thoughts. And when you learn to command them, you command your future. Replace "I can't" with "I'm becoming." Replace "I'm stuck" with "I'm learning." Replace "I failed" with "I'm adapting." Because the moment your words change, your identity begins to follow. And when your identity changes, your reality has no choice but to evolve with it. Chapter 11. Every environment you live in, physical, mental, and digital, is shaping you. It's either sharpening your edge or dulling it. Every person, every space, every habit around you is either fuel or friction. Most people underestimate how powerful their environment really is. They think discipline alone will save them. But even the strongest soldier can't win surrounded by chaos. Environment isn't background, it's battleground. If you want to win the war within, you must learn to control the terrain. Every person, space, and habit either fuels your growth or feeds your weakness. There's no neutral ground. Your environment is always training you to focus or to drift, to rise or to regress. And the truth is, you can't out-discipline a toxic environment forever. Because environment doesn't just influence behavior, it creates it. If you're surrounded by people who normalize laziness, you'll begin to lower your standards. If your space is cluttered, your mind will mirror that chaos. If your habits are built around distractions, your focus will disintegrate. You don't become who you want to be. You become what you surround yourself with. That's why you must audit your environment like a general audits his camp. You can't afford leaks in discipline. You can't build strength in chaos. A general walks the camp and inspects everything. The equipment, the morale, the supplies, the structure. Why? Because even one weak link in the system can compromise the entire mission. You must do the same. Audit your circle. Audit your routine. Audit your digital consumption. Audit your spaces, where you work, rest, think, and recover. Because if your environment doesn't match your mission, you're sabotaging yourself before you even start. Let's start with people. Your circle is your mirror. If you're surrounded by people who settle, you'll start to believe that's normal. If you're around people who blame, complain, or avoid discomfort, their energy will infect yours. But if you surround yourself with people who demand excellence, you'll rise to meet it. If you're around those who challenge you, who push you, who refuse to let you stay average, you'll evolve faster than you thought possible. Proximity is power. But proximity can also be poison. You need to know which one you're living in. Now your space. Look around the environments you spend the most time in. Your room, your desk, your phone screen. Are they built for focus or distraction? Do they reflect order or chaos? A disciplined mind thrives in structure. And structure begins with the space you occupy. Cluttered space, cluttered focus. Clean space, clear direction. Your surroundings should serve your goals, not sabotage them. If your environment constantly tempts you away from progress, it's not a home, it's a trap. You can't grow in a place designed for comfort when your mission demands pressure. Next, your habits. Habits are the environmental code running inside your brain. They automate behavior. They make decisions before you consciously do. And your environment either reinforces those habits or erodes them. For example, if your phone is beside your bed, your first habit every morning will be distraction. If your workspace is messy, your first thought will be chaos. If your friends encourage shortcuts, your first instinct will be avoidance. But if your environment is clean, intentional, and aligned with your goals, discipline becomes automatic. You won't need constant motivation. Your environment will do half the work for you. That's how high performers build consistency, not through willpower but through design. Keep what sharpens you, remove what softens you. Every tool, every person, every routine, it either makes you sharper or duller. The problem is most people never clean out what weakens them. They tolerate clutter, tolerate distractions, tolerate mediocrity. But every tolerated weakness becomes a habit of decline. Your environment should make it hard to fail and easy to focus. That's what design means, setting up your world so your best self wins by default. You can't always control what happens around you, but you can always control what you allow to remain. Silence the noise that drains you. Distance yourself from people who mock your growth. Simplify your space until it supports your focus. And most importantly, protect your energy. Energy is ammunition. It's what fuels execution. You can't waste it on negativity, drama, or distraction and expect to perform at your peak. The moment you take ownership of your environment, your productivity multiplies. Because now, everything around you is reinforcing who you want to become. Understand this, greatness doesn't come from willpower alone. It comes from alignment. Your mind, your habits, and your environment must all point in the same direction. If one is off, it slows everything else down. You can't plant seeds of focus in a garden of chaos and expect a harvest of clarity. You can't surround yourself with comfort and expect strength. You can't live in noise and expect inner peace. You are the architect of your surroundings. And if your environment is building weakness, rebuild it. Audit your life the same way a general audits his camp. What's serving the mission? What's slowing it down? What's stealing resources? What's strengthening the troops? Be ruthless with the answers. Because comfort will always disguise itself as harmless, but it's the biggest leak in your system. A disciplined environment creates disciplined behavior. And disciplined behavior builds disciplined results. So clean the camp. Sharpen the tools. Eliminate the noise. Keep what sharpens you. Remove what softens you. And when your environment becomes a reflection of your mission, you stop fighting against it and start being propelled by it. Because in the war of self-mastery, environment isn't decoration. It's ammunition. Chapter 12. Comparison is a thief. It steals energy, focus, confidence, everything you need to grow. And the cruel part? It disguises itself as motivation. You scroll, you watch, you measure your life against someone else's highlight reel. And you convince yourself it's inspiring. But deep down it's not inspiring, it's exhausting. Because comparison doesn't push you forward. It quietly convinces you that you're behind. The truth is, you don't need to compete with anyone. You only need to be 1% better than your yesterday. That's how real progress works, quietly, personally, consistently. Comparison drains energy, self-competition builds it. When you compete with others, your focus shifts outward. You start reacting, imitating, chasing validation. Your pace becomes dictated by someone else's progress. But when you compete with yourself, your focus shifts inward. You stop asking, am I better than them? And start asking, am I better than who I was? That question changes everything. Because it pulls you away from insecurity and into improvement. It turns jealousy into self-awareness. It transforms anxiety into direction. You stop chasing attention and start chasing evolution. The real scoreboard isn't followers, applause, or comparison, it's progress. Every time you show up when you didn't want to, that's progress. Every time you learn from failure instead of quitting, that's progress. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, that's victory. No one sees those wins, but they're the ones that matter most. Because success isn't a moment, it's momentum. And momentum is built one quiet improvement at a time. When you're focused on others, your energy is scattered. When you're focused on yourself, your energy is concentrated. Comparison says, they're ahead. Competition says, I'm still moving. Comparison says, they're better. Competition says, I'm improving. Comparison fuels envy. Competition fuels excellence. The difference isn't in effort, it's in direction. One drains you, the other builds you. Here's the truth. Someone will always have more. More followers, more money, more recognition. But they'll never have your path. You weren't built for their timeline. You weren't meant for their milestones. You have your own race, your own pace, your own purpose. And the second you stop trying to run someone else's race, your own starts accelerating. Because focus is power. And comparison kills focus. Self-competition, on the other hand, builds an unbreakable mindset. It forces you to look inward every day and ask, how can I make my habits sharper, my thoughts cleaner, my effort stronger? That's where mastery begins, in the relentless pursuit of personal improvement. You're not chasing perfection. You're chasing precision, the refinement of who you are. You don't need to beat others. You need to beat your patterns. You need to outperform your excuses. You need to outlast your weaker self. That's real victory, when the person you used to be can't keep up with the person you're becoming. The greatest people in any field, athletes, thinkers, creators, warriors, don't compete for applause. They compete for accuracy. They measure themselves against their last performance, not someone else's reputation. That's why they stay consistent, because their standard is internal. Their question isn't, who's watching? It's, did I execute better than yesterday? That's how you sustain progress, by anchoring your growth to yourself, not to others. Comparison thrives on insecurity. It feeds on the belief that you're not enough. But self-competition feeds on self-respect. It's built on the belief that you can always evolve. You don't grow by hating where you are. You grow by honoring where you are and improving from it. You can't be motivated by envy and expect peace. You can't crave validation and expect focus. Peace and power come when your only rival is the reflection staring back at you. So audit your mindset. Every time you catch yourself comparing, redirect. Don't ask, why them? Ask, what can I learn? Don't ask, why am I not there yet? Ask, what can I do today to move closer? Your energy belongs to creation, not comparison. Comparison wastes potential. Competition with self builds it. You only need to be 1% better than your yesterday. That's it. One more rep. One more page. One more moment of focus. One less excuse. Tiny improvements compound into massive transformation, but only when you stop wasting your energy looking sideways. Because while you're busy watching others, your own progress slips by unseen. But when you lock in on your own mission, you start to see growth in places you never noticed before. There's freedom in not needing to outshine anyone. Freedom in knowing your worth isn't measured in comparison. Freedom in realizing that your path doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It only needs to feel true to you. Let others race. Let others flaunt. Let others chase applause. You build. Quietly. Consistently. Relentlessly. Because in the end, it won't be about who looked the most successful. It'll be about who became the strongest version of themselves. So stop comparing. Start competing with yourself. Be the kind of person your past self would be proud of. And the kind your future self will thank. Because your only real opponent is the person you were yesterday. Defeat that version daily. And you'll never lose again. Chapter 13. Pain. The word that makes most people stop, but the very thing that makes the strong keep going. Pain isn't the enemy. It's information. It's feedback from your evolution, your body, mind, and spirit communicating that growth is in progress. Every bit of discomfort, every sting of failure, every ache of effort, it's all data. It's not punishment. It's not cruelty. It's communication. The weak run from it. The strong interpret it. Pain is how life tests your alignment. When something hurts, it's showing you exactly where you need to adapt, where your limits end and your next level begins. You can numb it, ignore it, complain about it, or you can read it. Because the difference between the fragile and the powerful isn't pain itself. It's perception. The fragile see pain as a stop sign. The powerful see it as a signal. Pain has one job, to tell you something isn't right, or that something is changing. When you lift heavier weights, muscles tear, they hurt, but only so they can rebuild stronger. When you confront hard truths, the ego burns. It stings, but only so wisdom can grow. When you outgrow people or habits, your comfort dies. It feels like loss, but it's really liberation. Pain is the messenger of transformation. And ignoring the messenger doesn't stop the message. The pain you avoid today will become the weakness that controls you tomorrow. The stronger you get, the more pain becomes data, not suffering. Because strength doesn't eliminate pain, it redefines it. It turns agony into awareness and frustration into feedback. A disciplined mind doesn't ask, "Why does this hurt?" It asks, "What is this teaching me?" Pain isn't always there to stop you. Sometimes, it's there to show you what still needs work. What belief still limits you, what habit still weakens you, what part of you still resists growth. And if you can sit with it, observe it, and extract the lesson instead of escaping it, you'll turn every painful moment into fuel. The weak avoid pain because they confuse it with suffering. But suffering is what happens when you resist the lesson. Pain is temporary. Suffering is extended by avoidance. Pain says, "Pay attention." Suffering says, "You didn't listen." When you stop fearing pain, you strip it of its power. You start seeing it for what it really is, feedback from progress. It means your body is changing. Your mindset is stretching. Your boundaries are expanding. Pain isn't your downfall, it's your upgrade. Think of pain like a compass. It points you toward what's next. When something hurts emotionally, it's showing you where you're still attached. When something hurts mentally, it's showing you where your belief system is outdated. When something hurts physically, it's showing you where your endurance still has room to grow. But you have to be calm enough to decode it. You can't interpret pain while panicking. You have to be grounded enough to say, "This discomfort is data. What does it mean?" That's what separates strength from struggle. Perspective. Growth doesn't feel good because you're not meant to enjoy the stretching. You're meant to endure it. You're meant to survive it long enough to evolve through it. And once you do, something incredible happens. The same pain that used to paralyze you now propels you. You start recognizing patterns. You start adapting faster. You stop fearing challenge because you've built immunity to it. Pain becomes part of the process, expected, respected, and utilized. You no longer need to escape it because you understand it. Every great transformation has pain woven into its design. You can't tear down the old without friction. You can't rebuild without discomfort. You can't evolve without letting go of parts of yourself that were never meant to last. So stop asking for an easy path. Ask for a meaningful one. Because meaning is always born in struggle. Not in comfort. Not in ease. Not in perfection. Pain teaches you more than success ever will, if you're willing to listen. The truth is, pain will meet you no matter what path you take. You can choose the pain of discipline, or you can live with the pain of regret. You can face the pain of growth, or you can remain stuck in the pain of stagnation. Either way, you'll feel something, so you might as well choose the pain that builds you. The difference is that one makes you bitter, the other makes you better. One leaves scars, the other leaves lessons. One closes you off, the other opens you up. Pain isn't here to break you, it's here to prepare you for what's next. You'll know you're evolving when pain stops feeling like an attack and starts feeling like information. When instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What can I learn from this?" That's the moment you move from survival to mastery. That's when pain stops controlling you and starts consulting you. It becomes your ally, tough, honest, and necessary. Because pain never lies. It's the most direct feedback you'll ever get from life. And the moment you stop fighting it, it starts guiding you. So when pain shows up, don't run. Don't drown it in distraction. Don't numb it with comfort. Study it. Decode it. Respect it. What is this pain trying to show me? What part of me still needs to grow? What boundary am I being asked to expand? Because the answer is always there, hidden within the hurt. Pain is not punishment. It's communication. It's growth translated into discomfort. And the moment you learn to read it, you'll realize, pain doesn't stop you. Pain shapes you. You don't have to love it. You just have to listen to it. Because every scar is a sentence. Every struggle is a story. Every ache is an announcement. You're evolving. Chapter 14. Success is dangerous. Not because it destroys you, but because it comforts you. And comfort, disguised as contentment, is the quiet killer of greatness. Success seduces you into softness. It whispers, "You've made it." It convinces you to slow down, to ease off, to enjoy the reward. But hunger protects you from decline. It keeps your fire lit when everything around you says, "Rest." Because the truth is, staying hungry after you've already eaten is the hardest discipline of all. The world celebrates your arrival, but discipline reminds you, arrival isn't the end, it's the invitation to start over, stronger. That's why so few people sustain success. They lose the hunger that built them. They forget that every victory brings a new enemy, comfort. You didn't climb to the top by relaxing. You climbed by grinding, sacrificing, focusing when no one was watching. So why stop now? Hunger isn't just the desire for more, it's the refusal to regress. The warrior mindset is built through humility after victory. Because real warriors understand, the battle never ends. Winning doesn't mean you're done. It means you're being promoted to face bigger challenges. A true warrior celebrates the win, then sharpens his blade again. He doesn't boast about what he's done. He prepares for what's next. Humility keeps the hunger alive. It reminds you that progress is temporary, that mastery has no finish line. The moment you start believing you've made it, your decline begins. You can't let pride replace purpose. You can't let comfort replace challenge. You can't let past effort justify current laziness. Discipline means showing up with the same fire after the victory as you had before it. It's the mindset that says, I'm grateful for this win, but I'm not finished. Because hunger isn't about dissatisfaction, it's about drive. It's about loving the climb more than the view. The view will fade. But the climb, that's where greatness is forged. Success creates a new kind of test, the test of consistency. When you had nothing, discipline was survival. Now that you have something, discipline must become principle. It's easy to stay hungry when you're starving for change. It's much harder when you've tasted comfort and still choose the grind. That's where most people fall. They stop training like underdogs. They stop learning like students. They start protecting what they have instead of pursuing who they could become. And that's when stagnation sets in, quiet, subtle, deadly. Stay ambitious even after the wins. Because every victory is temporary, but the mindset that earned it must be permanent. Remind yourself daily, success is rented, not owned, and rent is due every morning. You can't make one payment and expect lifetime ownership. You have to keep earning it through consistency, effort, and humility. So even when things are good, especially when things are good, push harder. Stay a student. Stay a builder. Stay hungry. The day you stop chasing growth is the day your greatness starts decaying. The disciplined don't chase recognition, they chase refinement. They measure success not by applause but by alignment, by how close their habits match their standards. They know hunger isn't an emotion, it's a system. It's built through routine, reinforced through challenge, and renewed through reflection. That's why they never let praise get louder than purpose. They accept the compliments, but they don't get comfortable. Because praise feels good, but progress feels better. The hunger to keep going comes from remembering what built you. The long nights, the early mornings, the failures no one saw, the grind no one clapped for. Don't ever forget that version of you, the one who was willing to do whatever it took. Because that hunger, that pure raw drive, is what created everything you have now. And if you lose it, everything you built starts to fade. Hunger is the insurance policy against decline. So how do you stay hungry? You remind yourself that mastery isn't about reaching the top. It's about never losing the edge. You keep setting new goals before comfort sets in. You keep challenging yourself to think, move, and lead better than before. You keep surrounding yourself with people who make you sharper, not softer. And you treat every win as a checkpoint, not a conclusion. Celebrate it, respect it, but don't live in it. The celebration ends when the next sunrise begins. Discipline after success is harder than discipline after failure, because failure humbles you but success flatters you. One pushes you, the other tempts you. But if you can stay humble in victory, your success multiplies. Because now you're not chasing validation, you're chasing evolution. And that's the secret of the relentless. They never stop being hungry. They never stop learning. They never stop proving their standard to themselves. Stay hungry. Stay grounded. Stay dangerous. The moment you feel done is the moment your decline begins. So keep your edge sharp. Keep your goals alive. And remember, success was never the destination. It was just the fuel for your next ascent. Because hunger is not something you lose. It's something you choose. Choose it daily. Chapter 15. Emotional reactions are habits, deeply conditioned responses your mind has practiced over time. They feel automatic because they've been rehearsed. And the longer you let them run unchecked, the more they start running you. Anger, irritation, anxiety, overthinking, these aren't random. They're reflexes. They've been programmed by repetition. But the same way they were learned, they can be unlearned. You can reprogram your triggers, and when you do, you move from emotional chaos to emotional command. Because emotional mastery isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about leading them. And that's what mental leadership truly means. Every time you react impulsively, snap at someone, spiral in stress, overthink a simple problem, your brain reinforces that pattern. It learns that reaction equals control, when in truth, reaction equals loss of control. The goal isn't to stop feeling, it's to stop letting feelings dictate your direction. You can't choose every trigger, but you can always choose your response. That choice, that moment between emotion and action, is where mastery begins. Catch your triggers. Observe them like a scientist, not a victim. What situations provoke you most? What words, tones, or people make you tense? What patterns repeat and why? Don't just react to the feeling. Study it. Every emotional outburst has a root, an old wound, a fear, a belief, a past experience that's still running the show. You can't change what you refuse to see. So start seeing. Start naming. Start noticing. Because awareness is the first step to reprogramming. Most people are slaves to their triggers because they confuse emotion with truth. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's reality. It means something inside you got touched. A belief, a memory, a defense mechanism. Your job isn't to judge it. Your job is to translate it. What is this emotion trying to tell me? What pattern is this reaction revealing? Is this response helping me or hurting me? This is how you move from reaction to reflection. You stop fighting emotions and start using them as data. Reprogramming triggers doesn't mean ignoring emotion. It means retraining it. You teach your mind that stillness is stronger than impulse. That calm is more powerful than control. When you get triggered, your old programming screams, react now. But mastery whispers, wait, observe, decide. The pause between stimulus and response is where your power lives. That's the space where leaders make decisions. That's the space where warriors regain composure. That's the space where growth actually happens. And you can build that space through repetition, awareness, and deliberate self-command. Every emotional outburst you control rewires your brain. Every impulsive moment you interrupt builds emotional muscle. And over time you start noticing something profound. The same things that used to shake you now barely move you. That's not numbness. That's evolution. That's what emotional strength feels like. Calm, not cold. You're not avoiding emotion, you're mastering it. The weak mind reacts. The strong mind reflects. The leader's mind responds. The difference isn't in emotion, it's in ownership. Weakness says, that person made me angry. Strength says, that situation revealed where I still need work. You can't control other people. You can only control the meaning you assign to them. And that meaning determines whether your emotions work for you or against you. Every trigger is a teacher. Every discomfort is a drill. And every moment of restraint is training. Think of your emotions like soldiers under your command. They're powerful, passionate, and ready to fight. But without leadership, they'll destroy the mission. You must train them to act on purpose, not impulse. You must become the commander, not the casualty. Emotional mastery is mental leadership. The ability to lead yourself when everything inside you wants to lose control. And that's where true power begins, in calm action under emotional pressure. Start small. Notice the next time something frustrates you. Instead of reacting instantly, breathe once. Just once. That single breath interrupts the loop. It gives your higher mind a chance to step in. You move from animal instinct to conscious choice. Repeat that enough times and it becomes your new reflex. You're no longer a reactor, you're a responder. You don't explode, you evaluate. You don't overthink, you observe. And that's what emotional reprogramming looks like, not silence but strategy. You'll still feel anger, fear, stress. They don't disappear. They just stop controlling you. Because now you understand that emotions are signals, not shackles. They're tools, not traps. You use them to navigate, not to justify self-destruction. That's what separates those who stay stuck in emotional chaos from those who rise above it. One reacts to everything. The other chooses their battles and wins them with composure. Remember this. Control isn't about never feeling. It's about never being owned by what you feel. Reprogramming your triggers takes patience. You'll slip. You'll react. You'll fall into old patterns. But every time you catch it a second sooner, that's progress. Every second of awareness strengthens the new code. Every moment of stillness rewrites the system. And slowly you become the kind of person who doesn't flinch under pressure. Because you've trained your mind to lead through it. Reprogram your triggers. Replace reaction with reflection. Choose awareness over impulse. Choose leadership over chaos. You can't stop emotions from coming, but you can decide whether they enter as commanders or messengers. And once you learn to command them, nothing external can control you again. Because power doesn't come from avoiding emotion. It comes from owning it. That's emotional mastery. That's mental leadership. That's self-control at its highest form. Chapter 16. In a world that never stops moving, stillness is rebellion. Every screen, every notification, every noise around you, all designed to keep your mind restless, reactive, distracted. But a calm mind sees clearly. Chaos clouds decision. Stillness is not weakness. It's not laziness. It's strategy. Because the ability to pause under pressure, to think when everyone else panics, that's what separates leaders from reactors. The most powerful people aren't the loudest ones. They're the calm ones. The ones who can stand in a storm and still think straight. The ones who don't get pulled into noise, emotion, or urgency. Stillness is their advantage. It's the pause before precision. The breath before battle. The calm before execution. It's where clarity lives. And clarity, not speed, is what wins wars. Most people react faster than they reflect. They move before they understand. They speak before they think. They choose before they observe. And then they wonder why life feels like chaos. You can't control the storm if you move like it. Stillness is how you regain control. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. A calm mind makes strong decisions. A restless mind makes emotional ones. When your mind is cluttered, everything feels urgent. When your mind is calm, you see what actually matters. That's why the strongest warriors meditate before battle. Not to escape chaos, but to center themselves within it. Because leadership isn't about reacting faster. It's about responding wiser. And wisdom requires stillness. You can't hear your instincts if you never stop talking to your fears. You can't find direction if you're always running from discomfort. You can't grow if your mind is always loud. Stillness isn't silence, it's space. The space where emotion settles. Where thought sharpens. Where clarity returns. It's where you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming a commander of focus. When something goes wrong, the world expects a reaction. Stillness defies that expectation. It says, I'll move when I choose, not when chaos demands. That's power. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that holds. Because reaction is easy. Stillness requires strength. Anyone can panic. Few can pause. Stillness is not about slowing down your life. It's about speeding up your mind's precision. When you pause, you separate signal from noise. You start to notice patterns others miss. You begin to hear the quiet truth beneath the loud emotion. Stillness reveals perspective, and perspective changes everything. It lets you see beyond the moment, beyond the fear, beyond the pressure. It reminds you that every challenge is temporary, but your reaction to it defines its impact. Think of stillness as your reset button. When things spiral, when emotions surge, when tension rises, pause. Take a breath. Observe before acting. Respond with clarity, not panic. That single moment of control can change the outcome of everything. Because decisions made from stillness are rarely regretted. Decisions made from chaos almost always are. A calm leader doesn't move slower, they move smarter. They know that urgency often disguises insecurity. that rushing rarely fixes what reflection can. Stillness allows for preparation. It allows space for reason to catch up to emotion. It turns noise into information. The more you practice stillness, the sharper your perception becomes. You start seeing through problems instead of being blinded by them. You start feeling in control even when everything around you isn't. That's composure, the quiet form of confidence. Stillness also builds endurance. It teaches you how to sit with discomfort without needing to escape it. It strengthens your patience, your emotional intelligence, and your decision-making. Because in a world obsessed with reaction, patience is power. And stillness is the foundation of patience. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop forcing progress. You start allowing growth to unfold naturally, with control, not chaos. That's not passivity. That's maturity. The best decisions you'll ever make won't come from stress. They'll come from stillness. Because stress compresses your thinking while calm expands it. When your mind is calm, you make choices based on principle, not panic. When your mind is chaotic, you make choices to escape, not to evolve. You can't build a life of purpose on reactions, only on reflection. And reflection only happens when you create space for it. That space is stillness. Stillness doesn't mean isolation, it means insulation. You're not withdrawing from the world, you're protecting your focus from it. You're creating a mental shield between external chaos and internal peace. And the stronger that shield becomes, the less the world can disturb you. No argument, no pressure, no crisis can easily shake a calm mind. Because the mind trained in stillness doesn't react to pressure, it uses it. Start practicing it. Pause before you reply. Breathe before you decide. Observe before you judge. Those seconds of stillness will save you from hours of regret. Stillness is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And the stronger it gets, the more control you gain over your life. Not control over what happens, but control over how you move through it. Remember this. Anyone can act strong when things are calm. But true strength is staying calm when things act strong against you. Stillness is the discipline of focus under fire. It's the mastery of patience under pressure. It's the quiet confidence that whispers, "I'll move when I decide." That's power. That's leadership. That's control. Because in the end, chaos isn't defeated by force. It's neutralized by stillness. Chapter 17. Most people don't lose because they lack potential. They lose because they stop showing up. They quit on the day nothing seemed to work. They walked away when the results didn't match their expectations. They let frustration rewrite the story that consistency was still building. But momentum doesn't come from perfection. It comes from presence. The simple, stubborn act of showing up again. Every single day you show up, even when you're tired, unmotivated, or uncertain, you're declaring that you haven't surrendered. And that declaration alone is victory in disguise. Because you win the war by staying in it. The truth is, progress rarely looks exciting while it's happening. Most of the time, it feels repetitive, uneventful, invisible. But that's how mastery is built. In the repetition no one applauds. Success doesn't come from bursts of effort. It comes from sustained effort, especially on the days it feels pointless. Because those are the days that test who you are. Anyone can show up when it's easy. The disciplined show up when it's not. And that's what separates the dreamers from the doers. Endurance. Momentum isn't magic, it's maintenance. It's the compound interest of effort. Every time you show up, you're stacking bricks. One at a time, invisible at first, until one day, the wall stands tall. People will call it luck. They'll say, "You came out of nowhere." But you'll know, you didn't come out of nowhere. You came from everywhere you refused to quit. The secret to lasting success is boring. Show up. Do the work. Repeat. That's it. No shortcuts. No perfect timing. No hidden formula. Just consistent, imperfect effort. Done longer than most people are willing to. That's how you outlast everyone who started faster. Most people want results instantly, not gradually. They want the success story, not the silent grind. They want to skip the part where progress feels invisible. But invisible progress is still progress. When you show up, you're training your mind, strengthening your identity, building the invisible momentum that eventually explodes into results. Momentum doesn't announce itself. It builds quietly until it can't be ignored. And the only way to build it is to stay in motion. You don't have to show up perfectly. You just have to show up consistently. Some days you'll move inches. Some days you'll leap forward. Some days it'll feel like you're going nowhere. But the key is, you never stop moving. Because when you stay in motion, even small steps become powerful. And when you stop, restarting costs 10 times as much energy. Momentum rewards persistence and punishes hesitation. Think about it. Every great achievement you admire wasn't the result of endless motivation. It was built on the quiet discipline of showing up through boredom, doubt, and fatigue. Champions aren't made on the days they feel great. They're made on the days they feel broken, and show up anyway. They don't wait for motivation. They rely on momentum. Because once momentum takes over, discipline becomes easier. You don't have to think, you just move. That's why missing one day doesn't just cost you progress. It costs you rhythm. And rhythm is the heart of consistency. Once you break it, your mind will look for excuses to break it again. That's how people slowly drift away from their goals. Not in a single moment, but in a gradual pattern of just today that becomes never again. So even when you can't give 100%, give what you have. Even if it's 40%, show up and give that. Because 40% done is infinitely more powerful than 0% postponed. You don't need to crush it every day. You just need to refuse to disappear. Because every time you show up, you're training yourself to trust yourself. You're proving that your word means something. That when you say, I'll do it, you mean it. And that trust builds identity. Identity builds confidence. Confidence builds momentum. That's how you evolve, not through sudden transformation, but through relentless persistence. There will be seasons when showing up feels effortless, and others when it feels impossible. Those hard seasons matter most. That's where the foundation is strengthened. That's where your patience is tested. That's where your commitment stops being a statement and becomes a lifestyle. Don't let temporary emotion sabotage permanent progress. You don't have to feel good to keep going. You just have to keep going to start feeling good again. Every time you show up, you silence doubt a little more. You teach your mind that discipline doesn't need permission. You prove that even on your worst days, you're still dangerous because you don't stop. That's the mindset that builds legends. Not talent, not motivation, but persistence. The willingness to show up one more day, one more rep, one more try, and then to do it again tomorrow. So remember, you win by staying in the fight. You grow by refusing to retreat. You succeed by stacking one day on top of another until your consistency becomes unshakable. No one remembers who started perfectly. They remember who never stopped showing up. Momentum belongs to the present. So does progress. So does victory. Keep showing up. Even when it's slow. Even when it's silent. Even when no one claps. Because every day you show up, you're winning, quietly, patiently, inevitably. You don't lose when you fail. You lose when you stop showing up. And you're not stopping. Chapter 18. Every warrior, every disciplined soul, every unstoppable mind, lives by a code. Not by feelings. Not by moods. Not by the rise and fall of motivation. Principles. That's what separates the lost from the locked in. The ones who drift through life from the ones who move with direction. Because when emotions fade, and they always do, your code becomes your compass. Keeps you steady when everything else wavers. Warriors live by principles, not moods. Your code of conduct is the standard you hold yourself to, not when it's convenient, but when it's inconvenient. It's the promise you make to your higher self and keep even when no one's watching. It's your personal law, written in discipline, enforced by action. Without a code, you're ruled by feelings. With a code, you rule your feelings. And that's how warriors move, not as slaves to emotion, but as servants of purpose. The world will test you every day. It will provoke you, distract you, tempt you, drain you. If you don't have internal rules, you'll break under external pressure. That's why your code matters, because in chaos, clarity comes from principle. When everything falls apart, your code tells you exactly what to do. You don't debate. You don't negotiate. You execute. That's the strength of structure. Create personal rules you never break, regardless of how you feel. Because feelings are weather. Principles are mountains. Feelings shift with mood, comfort, fatigue, or ego. Principles remain when nothing else does. When you feel unmotivated, your code says, we still show up. When you feel angry, your code says, we stay calm. When you feel doubtful, your code says, we trust the mission. When you feel tired, your code says, we finish the task. You stop needing motivation because your standards have already decided for you. That's the beauty of a code. It eliminates hesitation. Your code doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be absolute. Start with 3 to 5 principles that define how you live, lead, and think. Make them so clear that when you face uncertainty, the answer is obvious. For example, I don't break promises to myself. I respond with calm, not chaos. I finish what I start. I don't chase comfort, I chase growth. I do the work, especially when I don't feel like it. Simple, non-negotiable, unshakable. Because it's not the complexity of your code that makes you powerful, it's your consistency with it. Your code becomes your compass when motivation disappears. There will be days when you wake up empty. No drive, no spark, no enthusiasm. And that's when most people drift. But the ones with a code, they move anyway. Not because they feel like it, but because their principles demand it. They don't wait to be inspired. They live inspired by their own commitment. When everyone else needs emotion to act, they act to create emotion. Your code keeps you steady when the world tries to sway you. People will test your patience. Circumstances will test your resolve. Failures will test your belief. But your code, your principles, don't flinch. When emotions rise, principles protect. When doubt creeps in, discipline answers. When chaos erupts, clarity speaks. That's what makes the disciplines so rare. They don't just have goals. They have rules for how to reach them. Having a code also kills confusion. Because when you know your standards, decision-making becomes easy. You stop overthinking. You stop justifying bad choices. You stop living reactively. If something violates your code, it's a no, instantly. If something aligns with your code, it's a yes, confidently. No internal war. No wasted energy. No self-betrayal. Clarity isn't found in more information, it's found in stronger boundaries. But here's the truth most people ignore. You can't just write your code once. You have to live it daily. It's not ink on paper, it's muscle memory. It's proven through repetition until it becomes your reflex. Every day you follow your code, you strengthen your integrity. Every time you break it, you weaken your identity. Because identity is built through behavior, not beliefs. You don't become disciplined because you want to be. You become disciplined because you live by rules that don't bend when life does. And yes, following your code will make you uncomfortable. It's supposed to. That's how it builds strength. Every rule you keep during weakness sharpens your power. Every principle you protect during temptation reinforces your self-respect. Your code doesn't just guide you, it guards you. From inconsistency. From self-sabotage. From compromise disguised as comfort. It keeps your mission pure. Eventually, your code becomes your character. You no longer need to think about what to do, you just are the person who does it. You no longer need to remind yourself who you are, your actions prove it daily. That's when discipline becomes identity, and identity becomes power. Because the strongest people in the world aren't moved by emotion, they're anchored by principle. They don't chase feeling right. They do what is right. That's leadership. That's control. That's freedom. So write your code. Live it when it's easy. Honor it when it's hard. When motivation fades, let your code lead. When pressure builds, let your code hold. When doubt whispers, let your code answer. Because in a world that changes with every trend, your code, your personal standard, is the only thing that will keep you unshakable. You don't rise by emotion. You rise by execution. And execution demands principle. Write your code. Live by it. Die with it unbroken. Because in the end, that code becomes your compass, your armor, your legacy. Chapter 19. Purpose fades quietly. It doesn't vanish overnight. It erodes through routine, through repetition without reflection, through success without soul. You begin with fire. But over time, that fire turns into embers, Not because you're weak, but because you stopped feeding it. Purpose fades without reflection. If you don't remind yourself why you started, you'll forget what you're fighting for. And when the meaning disappears, the mission becomes mechanical. You move, but without direction. You work, but without connection. You achieve, but you no longer feel alive. That's why reflection isn't optional, it's fuel. Every warrior needs a reason. Not just a target, a truth. Something deeper than numbers, recognition, or achievement. Because when goals feel heavy, meaning is what keeps you moving. Metrics can't motivate you when the weight gets real. But purpose can. Purpose whispers, remember why you began. It reminds you that what you're doing matters, that every rep, every choice, every step is connected to something greater than the moment. Without that connection, even success feels empty. Purpose isn't something you find once. It's something you renew constantly. Because life changes. You change. Your mission evolves. What once fueled you might not fit you anymore, and that's okay. Growth requires renewal. You can't carry old definitions of purpose into a new season of life. You have to reflect, realign, and reignite. Ask yourself often, why am I doing this? What am I chasing, and is it still true to me? Am I moving toward meaning or just momentum? That's how you keep your purpose alive, by keeping it current. When your goals start feeling heavy, don't increase the pressure. Reconnect with the purpose. Remind yourself what you once said you'd fight for. The reason you started when it was hard. The fire that made you take the first step. Because the truth is, you don't get tired from working hard. You get tired from working without meaning. You can handle exhaustion when it's tied to something significant. But emptiness? That's what breaks people. Purpose gives your pain context. And pain with context becomes endurance. When the path gets dark, metrics won't guide you, purpose will. Numbers, achievements, milestones, they're just measures. But meaning gives direction when nothing else makes sense. Purpose is what keeps warriors walking through uncertainty. It's what keeps you steady when your results haven't caught up to your effort. It's what gives you clarity when motivation disappears. Because purpose doesn't depend on outcomes. It depends on belief. The belief that what you're doing matters, even when no one sees it yet. That's why warriors revisit their why often. They don't wait until they're burned out to reconnect. They reflect regularly, they recenter, realign, recommit. Because reflection isn't weakness. It's maintenance. You don't refuel your car only when it breaks down. You refuel so it keeps running. Your mind and your mission are the same. They need regular reminders of what they're driving toward. Reflection recharges the reason. And a renewed reason reignites the fire. But here's the paradox. Purpose doesn't always feel passionate. Sometimes it feels repetitive. Sometimes it feels distant. That's normal. Purpose isn't emotion, it's conviction. Conviction doesn't need to feel exciting to stay alive. It just needs to be remembered. So on the days you feel disconnected, don't panic. Reflect. Go back to your roots. Go back to the moment you decided this path mattered. The passion will return, not as a spark, but as a steady flame. Purpose also evolves as you do. The goals that once defined you may now be limiting you. The mission that once drove you may now need refinement. Renewal doesn't mean betrayal, it means maturity. You can let your purpose grow with you. You can evolve your why as you expand your who. Because purpose isn't fixed, it's forged through every season of your life. The more you grow, the more refined it becomes. That's what keeps your fire sustainable instead of fleeting. To renew your purpose, you must reconnect with truth, not trends. The truth of what fulfills you. The truth of what challenges you. The truth of what makes your struggle feel worthwhile. Trends will fade. Titles will change. But truth stays constant, and purpose lives inside that truth. So stop chasing excitement. Start cultivating alignment. Because excitement burns fast. Alignment burns forever. Renew your purpose through gratitude. Not for what you have, but for what you get to do. Every goal you chase now was once something you only dreamed of. Every challenge you face now is proof you've grown stronger. That perspective, that quiet gratitude, reignites appreciation. And appreciation renews purpose. You don't always need new goals. Sometimes you just need a new perspective on the ones you already have. Purpose isn't something you recite. It's something you remember when you want to quit. It's the thing that keeps you grounded when the noise gets loud. It's the reason you walk through pain when others run from it. So revisit it often. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Let it evolve. Let it guide you. Because when your purpose is clear, your path remains straight, even when it's dark. And when your purpose is renewed, your spirit becomes untouchable. Remember, motivation fades. Discipline carries you. But purpose sustains you. When everything else feels uncertain, purpose becomes your compass. It reminds you that the struggle has meaning, that the work has weight, that the journey is still worth it. So renew it often. Feed it daily. Protect it fiercely. Because the warrior who never forgets why they fight never loses their way. Chapter 20. This is it. The final battle. The one that never truly ends. The one that defines every victory you'll ever have and every loss you'll ever take. You versus. It's not poetic. It's not symbolic. It's real. Every morning, every decision, every moment of hesitation, the war begins again. Because you are both the problem and the solution. The voice that pushes you forward and the one that pulls you back live inside the same mind. And the one that wins is the one you feed most. You've fought this battle since the beginning, even when you didn't realize it. Every excuse, every delay, every comfort you chose over commitment, that was the weaker you trying to survive. And every time you pushed through, every time you stood up when quitting felt easier, that was your stronger self fighting back. This war doesn't happen in gyms, offices, or battlefields. It happens in silence. In the choices you make when no one's watching. In the thoughts you entertain when doubt whispers the loudest. That's where victory lives, or dies. Every day the weaker you fights to survive. It wants comfort. It wants distraction. It wants to protect your ego instead of your evolution. It will use your past to trap you, your fear to slow you, and your emotions to blind you. It will tell you you're tired when you're just unmotivated. It will tell you you've done enough when you still have more to give. It will convince you that later is safer than now. But you know better now. You've seen what that version of you does. It steals your potential quietly, one hesitation at a time. Don't let it win. The stronger you isn't louder, it's steadier. It doesn't make promises, it keeps them. It doesn't crave comfort, it creates purpose. It doesn't react, it commands. That version of you doesn't rely on emotion. It runs on principle. It moves because it said it would. It acts because it must. That's who you've been building throughout this journey, through the discipline, the stillness, the reflection, the pain. Every chapter of your growth was training for this moment, to recognize your own patterns and rise above them. The war never ends, but neither does your strength. That's the truth most people never learn. This isn't a war you win once. You win it daily, hour by hour, choice by choice. Discipline isn't a destination. It's a lifelong defense against decline. Growth isn't a phase. It's a permanent responsibility. You will fall. You will fail. You will forget who you are at times. But you will always have the power to return, to pick up your purpose again and keep evolving. Because that's what warriors do. They don't seek perfection. They seek progression. They don't avoid battle. They adapt to it. When you understand that the fight within you never stops, you stop waiting for peace to begin. You learn that peace is the fight, the discipline of staying centered in the middle of chaos. And that's where your real strength shows. Not in how loudly you win, but in how quietly you continue. Because evolution isn't about crushing your old self. It's about outgrowing it. Every version of you that once doubted, once quit, once feared, they all served a purpose. They built the awareness that made you who you are now. So don't hate those old versions. Honor them. Then surpass them. You versus. You isn't a war to destroy yourself. It's a war to discover yourself. To peel away everything that isn't truth. To unlearn every limitation that was programmed into you. To realize that who you've been is not who you have to remain. The weaker you will always exist, as a reminder of where you came from. The stronger you exists, as proof of where you can go. And your mission, every single day, is to make sure the stronger you leads. Remember what got you here. the courage to face yourself, the discipline to act without emotion, the patience to grow in silence, the strength to keep showing up. These aren't just lessons, they're your armor. And the world will test that armor again and again, with setbacks, temptations, and doubt. But now you know, the battle isn't outside, it's inside. And inside is where you've become unbreakable. There will be mornings when you feel unstoppable, and nights when you question everything. But whether you rise or fall, remember this. You are not defined by a single moment. You are defined by your return. You can reset as many times as you need to, as long as you don't stop returning to the fight. Because strength isn't built from never breaking. It's built from breaking and rebuilding, stronger, sharper, wiser. The war continues. But so do you. You are both the weapon and the warrior. Both the resistance and the rise. Both the chaos and the calm. And every time you choose to show up, every time you act with discipline, every time you hold your ground when weakness calls, you win. Not because the battle is over, but because you're still standing in it. You've learned to live inside the fight, not as a victim but as the victor. Not perfectly, but persistently. That's real mastery. That's evolution. That's freedom. The final battle never ends, but neither do you. Because strength isn't final. Discipline isn't final. Growth isn't final. They're alive. Breathing through your actions, your thoughts, your choices. And as long as you keep choosing growth, you win. You versus the only battle that ever mattered. The only one that truly defines who you become. Keep evolving. Keep showing up. Keep fighting the good fight within. Because as long as you do, you'll never lose. The greatest war you'll ever fight is the one inside your own head. And now you know, that battle never truly ends. You versus you is not a slogan. It's a lifelong discipline. Every day your comfort tries to convince you to slow down. Every day your emotions try to dictate your effort. But you, the higher you, knows the truth. Growth is not achieved through one victory, but through constant confrontation. You fight your weakness with honesty. You fight your laziness with structure. You fight your doubt with repetition. The weaker version of you will always whisper, rest. But the stronger version of you will always answer, not yet. And that voice, that relentless voice, becomes your edge. Remember this, you don't have to defeat the world to win. You just have to defeat the part of you that wants to stop. Every day you show up, you're winning the war. Every step forward, no matter how small, is victory. You are both the weapon and the warrior, the battlefield and the breakthrough. So tomorrow when the fight begins again, smile. Because this time you're not scared of the war within. You're prepared for it. It's always been you versus. And now, you finally know how to win.